This video contains audio content only. There are no visual elements or images accompanying the audio. If you're expecting to see video footage, please note that this is an intentional audio-only presentation. We recommend listening to this content rather than watching the screen. Thank you for your understanding and enjoy the audio. Welcome to this exploration of the Nuer people, a fascinating culture whose lives are deeply intertwined with the rhythms of the Nile River and the vast savannas of South Sudan and Ethiopia. In this journey, we'll unravel the rich tapestry of Nuer history, culture, and traditions, using clear and accessible language to make this complex world understandable for everyone. Prepare to be captivated by the story of a people whose origins are shrouded in ancient myths and whose journey through time has been marked by both resilience and adaptation. We'll delve into their history, tracing their migrations, exploring their interactions with neighboring groups, and examining the impact of colonialism and conflict on their society. From whispers of ancient myths to the harsh realities of modern conflict, we'll uncover the historical forces that have shaped the Nuer identity. At the heart of Nuer life lies a profound connection to their cattle. More than mere livestock, these animals represent wealth, status, and a spiritual link to the divine. We'll explore the central role of cattle in Nuer culture, from their economic importance to their significance in social rituals and spiritual beliefs. Prepare to enter a world where cattle are not just animals but companions, symbols, and the very essence of existence. We'll also delve into the intricate kinship system that binds the Nuer together, exploring the importance of family, clan, and age-set affiliations. Discover how these relationships govern every aspect of Nuer life, from marriage and inheritance to conflict resolution and political alliances. We'll also examine the unique age-set system, where men are grouped into age grades, shaping their social interactions and influencing their roles within the community. The spiritual world of the Nuer is as rich and complex as the savannas they inhabit. We'll explore their beliefs in a supreme being, lesser spirits, and the power of ancestral figures. Discover how their spiritual practices, including prayer, sacrifice, and divination, connect them to the unseen forces that shape their world. We'll also examine the impact of Christianity on Nuer spiritual beliefs, exploring the fascinating interplay of traditional practices and Christian doctrines. The Nuer have faced numerous challenges throughout their history, from slave raids and colonial rule to civil wars and displacement. We'll explore how these conflicts have impacted their society, disrupting their traditional livelihoods, fracturing their communities, and challenging their cultural identity. We'll also examine the resilience and adaptability of the Nuer, highlighting their efforts to preserve their traditions and rebuild their lives in the face of adversity. Finally, we'll look at the Nuer diaspora, those who have been forced to flee their homeland and seek refuge in other countries. We'll explore the challenges they face in adapting to new cultures and environments, as well as their efforts to maintain their cultural identity and contribute to their new communities. We'll also examine the ongoing struggles within South Sudan and the hopes and aspirations of the Nuer for a peaceful and prosperous future. By the end of this exploration, you'll have a deeper understanding of the Nuer people, their history, their culture, and their enduring spirit. You'll gain insights into their unique relationship with cattle, their intricate social structures, their rich spiritual beliefs, and their remarkable resilience in the face of adversity. Join us on this journey of discovery, and prepare to be inspired by the story of the Nuer people. Chapter 1. Whispers of the Nile, Origins and History of the Nuer. The Nuer, a people whose name echoes the flow of the mighty Nile, hold a history as rich and winding as the river itself. Their story begins not with the stroke of a historian's pen, but with the whispers of ancient myths, passed down through generations, shaping their identity and worldview. The Nuer trace their origins to a place called Leech, a place where the earth met the sky and life emerged from the sheltering branches of a great tree. This tree, a symbol of life and sustenance, birthed the first Nuer, and from its roots, they spread across the land, their lives forever intertwined with the natural world. Variations of this origin story exist, each adding unique details, yet all emphasizing a profound respect for nature, a reverence for the land that provides, and a deep connection to the birds that share their world. The Nuer's early migrations were driven by a combination of factors: the ever-present need for fertile grazing land for their beloved cattle, the occasional internal quarrel that led groups to splinter off and seek new territories, and the constant push and pull of interactions with neighboring groups. These migrations were not aimless wanderings, but deliberate movements shaped by the landscape and the presence of others. Their eastward expansion across the Nile and Zaraf rivers brought them into contact with the Dinka, Anuak, Mabon, and Burin. These encounters were a complex mix of conflict and cooperation, of displacement and assimilation, of cultural exchange and adaptation. Sometimes, the Nuer displaced these groups, absorbing some into their own expanding society. At other times, they traded and intermarried, sharing knowledge and customs. These interactions, both harmonious and hostile, became integral to the evolving tapestry of Nuer identity. The relationship between the Nuer and the Dinka is particularly intricate, a story told through different lenses, shaped by generations of shared history and recurring conflict. Some scholars suggest the Nuer and Dinka were once a single people, their paths diverging over centuries of migration and competition for resources. Others point to fundamental cultural differences and long-standing grievances as the root of their conflict. Whatever the true origin, the Nuer-Dinka relationship remains a central theme in the history of the region, a complex interplay of rivalry and interdependence. The late 1700s brought a new and devastating threat: the Baggara Arabs, slave raiders who swept through Nuerland, leaving a trail of destruction and despair. These raids shattered families, disrupted communities, and forced the Nuer to migrate once again, seeking refuge from the violence. Driven from their homes in southern Kordofan, they moved to Bentiu and later, further eastward into Ethiopia. The Baggara raids left a lasting scar on Nuer society, shaping their collective memory and influencing their future migrations. The arrival of the British in the 19th century marked another turning point. British colonial expansion, driven by a desire to control resources and impose their own administrative systems, brought a new set of challenges. The British sought to halt the Nuer's territorial expansion, implementing policies aimed at pacifying and controlling the Nuer and other groups in the region. These interventions, often heavy-handed and disruptive, had far-reaching consequences, altering the political landscape and influencing the course of Nuer history. The British attempted to administer the Nuer through a system of indirect rule, relying on local chiefs and intermediaries, but their efforts were often met with resistance, as the Nuer fiercely guarded their autonomy and traditional ways of life. In the Gambela region of Ethiopia, the Nuer found a new home, yet their experiences differed from those of their kin in South Sudan. They faced unique challenges, adapting to a different environment and interacting with a new set of Ethiopian groups. In Gambela, they continued their pastoralist traditions, their lives revolving around their cattle, but they also developed unique cultural adaptations, incorporating elements of Ethiopian cultures into their own. The Nuer in Gambela, like those in South Sudan, faced the pressures of modernization and development, struggling to maintain their cultural identity in a changing world. They also faced recurring conflicts over resources, particularly grazing land and water, with other Ethiopian groups, highlighting the ongoing challenges of peaceful coexistence. At the heart of Nuer society lies a strong kinship system, primarily patrilineal, with descent and inheritance traced through the male line. Key kinship terms, such as "gol" for blood relatives, reflect the deep bonds of family and clan. These relationships are not merely biological connections, but also social and economic alliances, shaping every aspect of Nuer life. The Nuer also have a unique age set system, where men are grouped into age grades based on their initiation into adulthood. These age sets are not just social clubs, but powerful institutions that influence political decision-making, mediate conflicts, and provide a sense of belonging and identity. Kinship and age set affiliations play a crucial role in daily life, governing everything from marriage and inheritance to conflict resolution and political alliances. For example, marriage is often arranged within specific kinship groups, and bride wealth, paid in cattle, strengthens the bonds between families. Age sets provide a framework for social interaction, with seniors commanding respect and juniors demonstrating deference. In times of conflict, elders from different age sets and clans come together to mediate disputes and restore peace. The traditional roles of men and women in Nuer society are distinct yet complementary, each contributing to the functioning of the community. Men are primarily responsible for herding cattle, protecting the community, and engaging in political affairs. Women take care of the household, cultivate crops, raise children, and play a vital role in the social and economic life of the community. However, these roles are not rigid, and there are variations within different Nuer communities and across different historical periods. Women, for example, can also own cattle and participate in trade, while men may assist with agricultural tasks during certain times of the year. The Nuer also have a remarkable institution of social men, where infertile women or women who have given birth to multiple children and acquired independent wealth can take on the social role of a man. These social men can marry women, have children through a chosen sperm donor, and fulfill the traditional roles and responsibilities of men in Nuer society. This practice challenges Western notions of gender and sexuality, demonstrating the fluidity of gender roles and the adaptability of social structures. It also highlights the importance of kinship and lineage in Nuer society, as the institution of social men allows for the continuation of family lines and the preservation of social order, even in the absence of a male heir. The Nuer, from their mythical origins to their documented history, have demonstrated a remarkable resilience and adaptability. Their story is one of migration, conflict, and adaptation, a testament to their enduring connection to the Nile and their determination to preserve their unique cultural identity. Their history is not just a collection of facts and dates, but a living narrative, passed down through generations, shaping their worldview and influencing their future. Chapter 2. Cattle, Kin, and Cosmos, the Heart of Nuer Society. The sun rises over the savanna, painting the sky in hues of orange and gold, and the lowing of cattle fills the air. For the Nuer, this is not just the start of a new day, but a continuation of a timeless rhythm, a life inextricably intertwined with their cattle. More than mere livestock, these animals are companions, symbols of status, and the very essence of their existence. The Nuer depend on the herds for their very existence, wrote British anthropologist E. E. Evans Pritchard. Cattle are the thread that runs through Nuer institutions, language, rites of passage, politics, economy, and allegiances. A Nuer man's day often begins with a visit to the kraal, the heart of the homestead. Here, amidst the familiar scent of dung and the gentle murmur of his herd, he greets his cattle by name, checking on their well-being, admiring their unique markings. Each animal holds a special place in his heart, its individual character as distinct as a human's. The children, too, learn to recognize and care for the cattle from a young age. They mimic their parents, learning the nuances of cattle husbandry, the art of herding, and the intricate language used to describe the animal's colors, horns, and temperaments. Even their names, often derived from beloved oxen or cows, reflect this deep connection. A boy might be called Gatluak, meaning son of the spotted ox, while a girl could be named Nialuak, meaning daughter of the white cow. These names are not mere labels, but expressions of identity, linking the individual to their family, their clan, and their cattle. Cattle are not simply a source of sustenance, they are integral to the Nuer's spiritual and social lives. They are the currency of social relationships, the measure of wealth and prestige, and the bridge to the spirit world. When a man wishes to marry, he must gather a substantial bride wealth, typically paid in cattle, to present to the bride's family. These negotiations are not just economic transactions, but complex social rituals, involving extended families and often spanning several months. The number and quality of cattle offered reflect the groom's status and his family's standing within the community. The acceptance of the bride wealth seals the union, creating a bond not just between two individuals, but between two families and lineages. Cattle also play a vital role in resolving disputes and restoring social harmony. If a man injures another, or even causes a death, compensation is paid, again in cattle. The number of animals offered depends on the severity of the offense and the social standing of the victim. This system of compensation, though seemingly transactional, is deeply rooted in the Nuer's belief in restoring balance and maintaining social order. It is not simply about punishing the offender, but about healing the rift within the community and preventing cycles of violence. The Nuer's social fabric is woven with intricate kinship ties, age-set affiliations, and a deep respect for tradition. Kinship, particularly patrilineal descent, defines a person's closest relatives, determining inheritance and social standing. Key kinship terms, like goal, for blood relatives, reflect the profound bonds of family and clan. These relationships govern every aspect of Nuer life, from sharing resources and providing mutual support to mediating disputes and forming political alliances. Beyond blood relations, the Nuer also recognize kinship through marriage and through shared experiences, such as belonging to the same age set. The Nuer kinship system is further nuanced by the importance of relative age. Respect for elders is paramount, with younger individuals expected to show deference and adhere to established protocols. A young man, for instance, would never address an elder by his given name, but rather by a kinship term, such as father or uncle, even if the elder is not a direct relative. Within the same age set, however, interactions are more informal and egalitarian. This emphasis on relative age permeates all aspects of Nuer life, from everyday conversations to formal ceremonies. Beyond kinship, the Nuer social structure is organized by the age set system, which groups men into age grades based on their initiation into adulthood. This initiation is a pivotal moment in a Nuer boy's life, involving a series of rituals and ordeals, culminating in the scarification ceremony. During this ceremony, 6 deep cuts are made across the forehead, marking the boy's transition into manhood. These scars are not just physical markings, but symbols of courage, endurance, and belonging. The men who undergo this ritual together form lifelong bonds of comradeship, sharing responsibilities and supporting each other through life's challenges. These age sets are not merely social clubs, but powerful institutions that influence political decision-making, mediate conflicts, and provide a sense of identity and belonging. Women, while not formally part of the age set system, are integrated into it through their relationships with men, as mothers, wives, sisters, or daughters. Their status within the community is often linked to the age set of their husbands or fathers. Relative age is paramount in Nuer social interactions. A person is expected to show deference to those in older age sets, addressing them with respect and adhering to established protocols. Within the same age set, however, interactions are more informal and egalitarian. This emphasis on relative age permeates all aspects of Nuer life, from everyday conversations to formal ceremonies. The Nuer's reverence for cattle extends beyond the physical realm, encompassing a deep spiritual connection. Cattle are seen as a link to the spirit world, and their sacrifice is an integral part of Nuer religious practices. When a family experiences misfortune, or when the community seeks to appease the spirits, an ox or a bull is sacrificed. The animal is carefully chosen, its markings and temperament considered, and the ritual is performed with reverence and solemnity. The shared consumption of the sacrificial meat strengthens the bonds between the community and the spirit world, ensuring continued blessings and protection. Cattle are also used in divination and healing ceremonies, their dung and urine employed in traditional remedies. The Nuer's deep connection to their cattle, their intricate kinship system, their respect for tradition, and their unique worldview form the heart of their society. Their lives, shaped by the rhythms of the savanna and the flow of the Nile, are a testament to their enduring resilience and their unwavering commitment to their cultural heritage. Their story, passed down through generations, continues to resonate, a whisper of the Nile carried on the wind. Chapter 3. The Rhythm of Life. Men, Women, and the Social Harmony of the Nuer. The sun rises over the savanna, casting a warm glow on the thatched roofs of the Nuer homesteads. The air is filled with the sounds of awakening, the lowing of cattle, the chirping of birds, and the rhythmic thump of a woman's pestle as she grinds millet for the morning meal. In the world of the Nuer, life is a carefully choreographed dance, a rhythmic interplay of roles and responsibilities, where men and women, young and old, each play their part in maintaining the harmony of the community. Their lives, though distinct, are interwoven, their destinies intertwined by the bonds of kinship, age-set affiliations, and a shared reverence for tradition. Nyalata, a young Nuer woman, rises before dawn. Her day begins with the milking of the cows, a task she shares with the other women and children of the homestead. The rhythmic squirts of milk into the gourds create a soothing melody, a familiar soundtrack to the start of each day. As the sun climbs higher, Nyalata turns her attention to the garden, carefully tending to the rows of millet and maize that will provide sustenance for her family. Her knowledge of the land, passed down through generations of women, guides her hands as she weeds, waters, and cultivates the soil. Later, she will return to the homestead, preparing food for her family, caring for her children, and engaging in the daily rhythm of domestic life. Her evenings are often spent sharing stories with the other women, weaving intricate patterns into mats, or brewing the potent millet beer that is a staple of Nuer social gatherings. Gatluok, a Nuer man in his prime, follows a different rhythm. His day revolves around the cattle, the heart of Nuer life. He greets his cows by name, checking on their well-being, admiring their unique markings. He leads them to pasture, his spear held high, a symbol of his role as protector and provider. Throughout the day, he watches over his herd, singing songs he has composed in their honor, his voice echoing across the savannah. In the evening, he returns to the cattle camp, where he joins the other men in discussions of politics, kinship, and community affairs. His evenings are often filled with storytelling, the sharing of wisdom and knowledge passed down through generations of men. He might also participate in a wrestling match, a test of strength and skill that is both a sport and a social ritual. The lives of Nyalada and Gatluok, though seemingly separate, are deeply connected by the intricate web of Nuer kinship. Their families are linked by marriage, their children bound by blood. They share obligations and responsibilities, supporting each other through life's challenges and celebrating its joys. Their kinship ties extend beyond their immediate families, encompassing a vast network of relatives, each with a specific role and status within the community. This kinship system, primarily patrilineal, governs inheritance, social interactions, and even conflict resolution. Key kinship terms, such as "goal" for blood relatives, reflect the deep bonds of family and clan. These relationships are not mere biological connections, but social and economic alliances, shaping every aspect of Nuer life. The economic roles of men and women, though distinct, are interconnected and essential to the community's well-being. Men are primarily responsible for herding cattle, the cornerstone of Nuer economy and culture. They also engage in hunting and fishing, providing additional sources of protein. Women, on the other hand, are responsible for cultivating crops, primarily millet and maize, which provide the staple grains for the Nuer diet. They also manage the household, prepare food, care for children, and play a vital role in the social and economic life of the community. Women's economic contributions extend beyond the domestic sphere. They are skilled brewers of millet beer, a valuable commodity used in social gatherings and ceremonies. They also participate in trade, exchanging goods with neighboring communities. Their knowledge of plants and their ability to gather wild foods are essential to the community's survival, particularly during times of drought or famine. The Nuer's adaptability and resilience are evident in their unique institution of social men. Under certain circumstances, a woman can take on the social role of a man. This might occur if a woman is infertile, allowing her to marry a woman and have children through a chosen sperm donor, ensuring the continuation of her lineage. This practice, sometimes referred to as woman-woman marriage, is not a reflection of sexual orientation, but rather a pragmatic solution to the social and economic challenges posed by infertility. The social man takes on the responsibilities of a husband, providing for her wife and children, participating in community affairs, and even taking multiple wives. This arrangement allows for the continuation of family lines and the preservation of social order, even in the absence of a biological male heir. A woman might also transition into the role of a social man if she has given birth to multiple children, demonstrating her fertility and social value, and has acquired independent wealth, often in the form of cattle. In this case, the woman's transition is less about ensuring the lineage and more about achieving a higher social and economic status. She might continue to live with her husband, who now refers to her as brother, or she might establish her own independent household, taking on the responsibilities and privileges traditionally associated with men. This flexibility in gender roles demonstrates the Nuer's adaptability and their recognition of individual circumstances. It challenges Western notions of gender and sexuality, highlighting the fluidity of identity and the social construction of gender roles. The Nuer's social structure is not a static entity, but a dynamic and evolving system. Their traditions, though deeply rooted in their history and culture, are constantly adapting to changing circumstances. The challenges posed by conflict, displacement, and modernization have forced the Nuer to re-evaluate their roles and responsibilities, their relationships with each other, and their connection to their cultural heritage. Yet, even in the face of such adversity, their core values, their reverence for cattle, their intricate kinship system, their respect for tradition, and their adaptability, continue to guide them, shaping their lives and ensuring the continuity of their culture. The rhythm of Nuer life, though sometimes disrupted by the harsh realities of the world, continues to beat, a testament to their resilience, their enduring spirit, and their unwavering hope for a brighter future. Chapter 4. Where the Cows Whisper, the Spiritual World of the Nuer. The sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the savanna, and the crackling fire at the center of the cattle camp becomes the focal point of Nuer life. As the flames dance and the stars emerge, the whispers of the spirit world begin to mingle with the lowing of cattle, creating a symphony of sound that permeates the Nuer's spiritual landscape. Their cosmology, as intricate and nuanced as the patterns woven into their traditional attire, is not confined to the physical world, but extends into a realm of unseen forces, ancestral spirits, and a supreme being, quoth, the giver and taker of all life. Quoth, the creator of all things, is both transcendent and immanent, present in the vastness of the sky and the intimacy of the cattle camp. He is the source of all blessings and misfortunes, the ultimate arbiter of fate. The Nuer communicate with Quoth through prayer and sacrifice, often offering their most prized possession, cattle. These sacrifices are not mere transactions, but acts of profound reverence, performed with solemnity and care. A bull, chosen for its strength and vitality, might be offered to Quoth to ensure a successful harvest or to ward off illness. The ritual is performed by a designated elder, who recites prayers and invokes Quoth's blessings. The shared consumption of the sacrificial meat strengthens the bonds between the community and the divine, creating a sense of shared purpose and spiritual connection. Beyond Quoth, the Nuer spiritual world is populated by a multitude of spirits, known as Kuath. These spirits are not always benevolent. They can be capricious, even malevolent, influencing human affairs for both good and ill. Some Kuath are associated with specific locations, a towering tree, a bubbling spring, or a rocky outcrop. Others inhabit animals, particularly those revered or feared, such as the lion or the python. Still others are linked to natural phenomena, the wind, the rain, or the lightning. The Nuer interact with these spirits cautiously, offering sacrifices and performing rituals to appease them and ensure their favor. A family experiencing a string of misfortunes, for example, might consult a diviner to determine which Kuath is displeased and what offerings are required to restore balance. A hunter, before venturing into the bush, might perform a ritual to seek the protection of the spirits associated with the animals he hunts. The Nuer also believe in the power of ancestral spirits, the ghosts of their forebears, who continue to watch over and influence the living. These spirits are not distant deities, but active participants in the community's life, offering guidance and protection, or sometimes, causing mischief or misfortune. The Nuer maintain a close relationship with their ancestors, honoring them through rituals and seeking their wisdom in times of need. A family facing a difficult decision, for example, might gather at the ancestral shrine, offering prayers and seeking guidance from the spirits of their elders. Navigating this complex spiritual landscape is the role of the prophets, individuals believed to possess special powers and insights. These prophets are not chosen through formal training or ordination, but emerge from within the community, their status earned through their perceived ability to communicate with the spirit world. A prophet might gain recognition through vivid dreams, through pronouncements that come true, or through demonstrating healing powers. Their pronouncements carry weight, influencing community decisions, resolving disputes, and even shaping the course of events. A prophet might, for instance, call for a community-wide sacrifice to appease an angry spirit, or mediate a conflict between rival clans. Their pronouncements are not always met with unquestioning acceptance, however. A prophet's authority rests on their perceived connection to the spirit world, and if their pronouncements prove inaccurate or their actions contradict Nuer values, their influence can wane. The arrival of Christianity has added another layer to the Nuer's spiritual tapestry, creating a fascinating interplay of traditional beliefs and Christian doctrines. Some Nuer have embraced Christianity wholeheartedly, while others have integrated Christian elements into their existing spiritual practices, creating a syncretic blend of old and new. A Nuer Christian, for instance, might pray to both Quoth and the Christian God, or participate in both traditional sacrifices and Christian church services. This blending of beliefs is not always seamless, however. Tensions can arise between traditional practices, such as ancestor veneration or spirit appeasement, and Christian teachings that emphasize monotheism and reject such practices as idolatry. Yet, for many Nuer, this blending of beliefs is a natural and meaningful way to navigate the complexities of the modern world, preserving their cultural heritage while embracing new spiritual paths. The Nuer's spiritual world is inseparable from their environment and their livestock, particularly cattle. Their cosmology reflects their pastoral lifestyle, shaping their understanding of the world around them. The vast savanna, the life-giving Nile, the cattle that sustain them, these are not just physical entities, but also spiritual forces, imbued with meaning and power. The Nuer see a profound connection between the physical and spiritual realms, believing that the spirit world permeates the natural world, influencing every aspect of their lives. The rustling of leaves in the wind might be the whisper of a kuith, the bellow of a bull a message from an ancestor, the abundance of milk a blessing from Quoth. This interconnectedness between the physical and spiritual shapes their daily lives, influencing their decisions, their actions, and their understanding of their place in the cosmos. They believe that respecting the natural world, caring for their cattle, and honoring their ancestors are essential to maintaining a harmonious relationship with the spirit world and ensuring their own well-being. The Nuer's spiritual beliefs are not static doctrines, but living traditions, constantly evolving and adapting to changing circumstances. Their cosmology is a dynamic and fluid system, accommodating new experiences, incorporating new influences, and reflecting the ongoing dialogue between the Nuer and the world around them. Their spiritual world, like the Nile that sustains them, continues to flow, shaping their lives, guiding their destinies, and whispering the secrets of their ancestors. Chapter 5. Guardian of the Birds. The Nuer's relationship with birds transcends mere observation. Birds are sacred beings, messengers of the divine, and symbols of connection to nature. This reverence is reflected in their names for birds. Gotquoth, sacred children of God, quoth, bearers of spirit, and Diet, symbols of human twins. The Nuer's knowledge of birds is extensive and practical. They recognize numerous species, each with a unique cultural role. For example, the African fish eagle, the African pygmy kingfisher, the pied kingfisher, and the malachite kingfisher are all indicators of fish populations, their presence guiding the Nuer to bountiful fishing grounds. The Nuer observe these birds with keen eyes, noting their flight patterns, their calls, and their behavior. A sudden flurry of kingfishers diving into the water signals a shoal of fish, prompting the Nuer to cast their nets. The sight of a fish eagle soaring overhead, its piercing cry echoing across the savanna, indicates a nearby river teeming with fish. Other birds serve as omens, their behavior interpreted as messages from the spirit world. The mournful call of the owl, for instance, might be a warning of impending danger, while the sight of a flock of vultures circling overhead could be an omen of death. The Nuer pay close attention to these avian messengers, interpreting their behavior within the context of their spiritual beliefs and their understanding of the natural world. These interpretations are not fixed, but rather fluid and adaptable, based on generations of observation and cultural knowledge. Certain birds hold medicinal value. The Nuer use various bird parts, such as feathers, bones, and beaks, in traditional remedies. For example, the feathers of certain birds might be used to create a poultice for a wound, while the bones of another bird might be ground into a powder and ingested to treat a fever. This knowledge of avian medicine is passed down through generations, with elders playing a crucial role in sharing their wisdom and experience. Birds also feature prominently in Nuer folklore and mythology. Stories are told of birds that transform into humans, of birds that carry messages between the spirit world and the living, and of birds that embody certain values or beliefs. The black-crowned crane, for instance, with its elegant plumage and graceful movements, is revered as a symbol of beauty and peace. These stories are not just entertainment, they are also a means of transmitting cultural knowledge, teaching moral lessons, and reinforcing the Nuer's connection to the natural world. The Nuer's use of birds for cultural purposes, such as creating amulets or ceremonial attire, is guided by a deep respect for these creatures and a commitment to sustainability. When feathers are needed for an amulet, for instance, they are carefully collected from naturally shed feathers or from birds that have died of natural causes. The Nuer believed that taking feathers from a living bird would not only harm the bird but also disrupt the balance of the natural world. Similarly, when birds are hunted for food, it is done with respect and restraint. Hunting is typically restricted to times of severe food shortage, and even then, there are cultural taboos that protect certain bird species, such as those associated with twins or those considered sacred. These practices reflect the Nuer's understanding that they are part of a larger ecosystem, and that their actions have consequences for the well-being of both the natural world and their own community. The Nuer's traditional ecological knowledge, particularly their understanding of birds, holds valuable lessons for contemporary conservation efforts. Their sustainable practices, their respect for the interconnectedness of all living things, and their deep understanding of the natural world offer a powerful model for promoting a more harmonious relationship between humans and nature. By incorporating indigenous knowledge into conservation strategies, we can learn from the Nuer's wisdom and experience, developing more effective and culturally sensitive approaches to protecting avian diversity and preserving the ecological balance. The Nuer's relationship with birds is a testament to their profound connection to the natural world. Their spiritual beliefs, their cultural practices, and their daily lives are interwoven with the presence of birds, reflecting a deep respect for these creatures and an understanding of their vital role in the ecosystem. As guardians of the birds, the Nuer offer a powerful example of how cultural traditions can be a force for conservation, reminding us that our relationship with nature is not just scientific or economic, but also spiritual and cultural. Chapter 6. A People Divided, Navigating Conflict and Displacement. The rhythmic lowing of cattle, once a comforting constant in Nuer life, has been increasingly drowned out by the staccato bursts of gunfire. The Nuer, a people whose history is interwoven with the flow of the Nile and the rhythms of the savannah, have long known conflict, but the nature of their struggles has undergone a dramatic transformation. Traditional cattle raids, once governed by customary laws and rarely resulting in large-scale casualties, have escalated into brutal cycles of violence, fueled by modern weaponry and political machinations. The Sudanese civil wars, the fight for independence, and the subsequent power struggles within South Sudan have left deep scars on the Nuer social fabric, challenging their ability to preserve their traditions and their very way of life. For generations, cattle raids were a part of Nuer life, a complex interplay of resource competition, livelihood sustenance, and cultural practice. These raids, while sometimes violent, were traditionally governed by customary laws and rituals. They were often a means of replenishing herds after droughts or acquiring bride wealth, the customary payment of cattle by a groom's family to the bride's family. Elders played a crucial role in mediating disputes and preventing escalation. Raids were typically targeted at young men, with women, children, and the elderly often spared. There were established protocols for negotiating compensation for stolen cattle or injuries inflicted, ensuring a measure of balance and preventing all-out war. The introduction of modern weapons, however, shattered these traditional restraints. Automatic rifles replaced spears, increasing the lethality of raids and eroding the customary laws that had once limited casualties. The focus shifted from acquiring cattle to inflicting maximum damage, with women and children no longer immune from the violence. The Sudanese civil wars, spanning decades, further intensified these conflicts. The Sudanese government, in its efforts to quell the Southern Rebellion, actively exploited ethnic divisions, pitting the Nuer against the Dinka and other groups. They armed local militias, providing them with modern weapons and encouraging them to attack rival communities. This strategy of divide and conquer fueled inter-ethnic violence, leading to widespread displacement, loss of life, and the disruption of traditional social structures. The Nuer, caught in the crossfire, found their traditional livelihoods threatened, their communities shattered, and their very identity under attack. The Nuer White Army, a militia composed primarily of young Nuer men, emerged as a force of resistance against both the Sudanese government and other tribes. Initially formed to protect Nuer communities and their cattle, the White Army became increasingly involved in the broader conflict. Their refusal to disarm after the 2005 Comprehensive Peace Agreement led to clashes with the SPLA, the South Sudanese Army. The 2011-2012 South Sudan tribal clashes, marked by brutal violence between the Nuer White Army and the Merle tribe, further highlighted the fragility of peace in the newly independent nation. The hope that accompanied South Sudan's independence in 2011 proved short-lived. The 2013 political crisis, triggered by the dismissal of Vice President Riek Machar, a Nuer, by President Salva Kiir, a Dinka, ignited a new chapter of violence. What began as a political power struggle quickly escalated into a full-blown civil war, with ethnic tensions fueling the flames. In Juba, the capital city, Nuer civilians became targets of systematic attacks. Government soldiers, predominantly Dinka, conducted house-to-house searches, rounding up Nuer men and boys. Witnesses described harrowing scenes of families torn apart, men executed in their own homes, and others dragged away to unknown fates. One of the most horrific incidents occurred in the Gudele neighborhood of Juba. Hundreds of Nuer men were rounded up and detained in a police building. Packed into a small, overcrowded room, they endured hours of terror before government forces opened fire, indiscriminately shooting through the windows. The few survivors described a scene of unimaginable carnage, with bodies piled upon bodies. This massacre, known as the Juba Massacre, became a symbol of the brutality of the conflict and the government's willingness to target civilians based on their ethnicity. The conflict quickly spread beyond Juba, engulfing much of the country. Nuer communities were targeted, their homes looted and burned, their cattle stolen, and their livelihoods destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of Nuer were displaced, fleeing to UN camps or seeking refuge in neighboring countries. The conflict not only claimed countless lives but also shattered the Nuer's traditional way of life. Their relationship with cattle, central to their identity and culture, was severely disrupted. Their spiritual beliefs, intertwined with the land and their livestock, were challenged by the violence and displacement. Their unique social structures, based on kinship and age-set affiliations, were strained by the fragmentation of communities and the loss of traditional leadership. The South Sudanese army, once seen as a symbol of liberation, was implicated in many of the atrocities committed against Nuer civilians. Massacres, rape, and the destruction of villages became hallmarks of the conflict. The international community, while condemning the violence, struggled to effectively intervene. UN peacekeepers tasked with protecting civilians were often outnumbered and outgunned, unable to prevent the atrocities unfolding before their eyes. The impact of these conflicts on the Nuer social fabric has been profound. Kinship structures, once the bedrock of Nuer society, have been fractured by displacement and loss of life. Traditional social organization, based on age sets and clan affiliations, has been disrupted by the breakdown of communities and the scattering of families. The roles of men and women, traditionally defined by their respective responsibilities in herding, agriculture, and household management, have been blurred by the exigencies of war and displacement. Women, often left to care for their families alone, have taken on new roles as heads of households and community leaders. Men, forced to fight or flee, have lost their traditional roles as protectors and providers. The conflicts have also challenged the Nuer's ability to maintain their cultural practices. Their relationship with cattle, central to their identity and spirituality, has been severely disrupted by the theft and slaughter of their herds. Their spiritual beliefs, deeply connected to the land and their livestock, have been tested by the violence and displacement. Their unique social structures, including the institution of social men, have been strained by the fragmentation of communities and the loss of traditional authority. The Nuer, a people whose resilience and adaptability have been tested time and again, now face the daunting task of rebuilding their lives and preserving their cultural heritage in the face of ongoing violence and displacement. Their story, a testament to the human spirit's capacity for both great suffering and great resilience, continues to unfold, a whisper of the Nile carried on the winds of change. Chapter 7. Footprints in the Diaspora. The Future of the Nuer. The scent of burning dung no longer hangs heavy in the air. The lowing of cattle is a distant memory. For many Nuer, the familiar landscape of the savannah has been replaced by the unfamiliar streets of cities like Omaha, Nebraska, a world away from the ancestral lands of South Sudan. The conflict that has ravaged their homeland has not only claimed lives and shattered communities, but has also forced a profound shift in the Nuer way of life, scattering families across continents and challenging their very identity. Yet, even in the face of such adversity, the echoes of the cattle camp continue to resonate, carried on the winds of resilience, adaptation, and an unwavering determination to preserve their cultural heritage. The loss of cattle, the cornerstone of Nuer culture and economy, has been devastating. Cattle were not merely livestock, they were the measure of wealth, the currency of social relationships, and the bridge to the spirit world. Bride wealth, traditionally paid in cattle, sealed marriages and forged alliances between families. Cattle were sacrificed to appease the spirits and ensure the community's well-being. Their milk nourished families, their hides provided clothing and shelter, and their horns and bones were crafted into tools and ornaments. The theft and slaughter of cattle during the conflict have not only deprived the Nuer of their livelihoods but have also severed a deep spiritual and cultural connection. Many Nuer, now living in refugee camps or resettled in foreign lands, have lost their connection to the land, the cattle, and the traditional rhythms of pastoral life. This loss is not just economic, it is a profound loss of identity, a severing of ties to their ancestral past. The disruption of traditional livelihoods extends beyond cattle herding. During the rainy season, the Nuer would cultivate millet and maize in small garden plots, supplementing their pastoral diet. These gardens, carefully tended by the women, provided essential grains for porridge and beer. The dry season would see the Nuer move their cattle to camps near rivers and streams, seeking fresh pasture and water. This seasonal migration, a rhythm etched into their cultural DNA, has been disrupted by the conflict, forcing many Nuer to abandon their lands and seek refuge in overcrowded camps, where they rely on humanitarian aid for survival. This dependence on aid, while necessary, has further eroded their traditional self-sufficiency and their connection to the land. Many now face the challenge of adapting to urban environments, where their skills and knowledge of cattle herding and horticulture are no longer relevant. The emotional toll of the conflict is immeasurable. The trauma of witnessing violence, losing loved ones, and being forced from their homes has left deep scars, particularly on women and children. Women have borne the brunt of the violence, facing sexual assault, forced displacement, and the responsibility of caring for their families alone. Children have witnessed atrocities that no child should ever see, their education disrupted, their futures uncertain. The psychological impact of these experiences will likely linger for generations, challenging the Nuer's ability to heal and rebuild their lives. Even those who have escaped the direct violence carry the weight of loss and uncertainty, haunted by the memories of what they have left behind. Yet, amidst the despair, there are glimmers of hope. The Nuer diaspora, particularly those resettled in the United States, are working tirelessly to preserve their cultural identity. In cities like Omaha, Nebraska, which now boasts the largest Nuer population outside of South Sudan, community centers have become hubs of cultural preservation. Elders teach the Nuer language to the younger generation, ensuring that the whispers of their ancestors are not forgotten. Traditional music and dance, once performed around the crackling fires of the cattle camp, now echo in community halls, connecting the diaspora to their roots. Storytelling, a cornerstone of Nuer oral tradition, continues to thrive, passing down history, values, and cultural knowledge to the next generation. These efforts are not just about preserving the past, they are about creating a sense of belonging, forging a new identity in a new land, and ensuring that the echoes of the cattle camp continue to resonate. The Nuer diaspora is not simply clinging to the past, they are also contributing to their new communities. Many have found employment in the meatpacking industry, drawing on their traditional knowledge of livestock. Others have become active in civic life, serving on community boards, advocating for refugee rights, and working to bridge cultural divides. They are building businesses, pursuing higher education, and raising families, determined to make a positive impact in their new homes. Their resilience and adaptability are a testament to the strength of the Nuer spirit and their capacity to thrive, even in the face of adversity. They are not just refugees, they are entrepreneurs, community leaders, and agents of change. Within South Sudan, there is a growing movement for peace and reconciliation. Nuer leaders and community members are actively participating in dialogues and peace initiatives, seeking to end the cycle of violence and build a future based on unity and understanding. Women, often excluded from traditional political processes, are playing a vital role in these efforts, advocating for peace, mediating conflicts, and promoting reconciliation at the grassroots level. These peace initiatives are not just top-down processes. They are also happening at the community level, with elders from different clans and age sets coming together to resolve disputes and rebuild trust. The New Sudan Council of Churches, for example, has played a key role in facilitating reconciliation meetings between the Nuer and Dinka, bringing together community leaders to address grievances, promote forgiveness, and build a shared vision for the future. The One Lit Peace and Reconciliation Conference, held in 1999, is a powerful example of these local peacebuilding efforts. The conference brought together Dinka and Nuer representatives, who signed a covenant committing to peace, returning abducted women and children, and reopening contested grazing lands and trading routes. The Nuers' hopes and aspirations for the future are deeply rooted in their cultural values and their connection to the land. They yearn for a return to peace and stability, a future where their cattle can graze freely, where their children can grow up without fear, and where their traditional way of life can be restored. They envision a future where their kinship ties, once strained by conflict, can be strengthened, where their age-set system can once again provide a framework for social organization and leadership, and where their spiritual beliefs can flourish, connecting them to their ancestors and the land that sustains them. They dream of a future where the whispers of the cattle camp are not drowned out by the sounds of war, but instead resonate with the laughter of children, the songs of celebration, and the lowing of a healthy and thriving herd. The international community has a crucial role to play in supporting the Nuers' journey towards peace and prosperity. Humanitarian aid is essential to address the immediate needs of those displaced by the conflict, providing food, shelter, medical care, and education. However, aid alone is not enough. The international community must also support long-term development initiatives, helping the Nuer rebuild their livelihoods, restore their traditional practices, and create a sustainable future. This includes supporting education programs, promoting economic development, and investing in infrastructure. Equally important is the pursuit of justice and accountability for the atrocities committed during the conflict. Perpetrators of war crimes and crimes against humanity must be brought to justice, not only to provide closure for victims and their families but also to deter future violence and build a foundation for lasting peace. The international community must also support reconciliation efforts, working with Nuer leaders and community members to heal the wounds of the past and build a shared future based on mutual respect and understanding. The future of the Nuer, like their past, will be shaped by their resilience, their deep connection to their culture, and their unwavering determination to survive. They are a people whose history is etched into the landscape, whose identity is intertwined with their cattle, and whose spirit is as vast and enduring as the Nile itself. Their journey is far from over, but their footprints, whether in the dust of the savannah or on the streets of a distant city, will continue to mark their presence, a testament to their enduring strength and their unwavering hope for a brighter future. The Nuer people of South Sudan and Ethiopia, deeply connected to the Nile River and the savannah, offer a compelling case study in cultural resilience and adaptation. Their history, marked by migration, conflict, and interaction with neighboring groups, has shaped a unique identity centered around cattle, kinship, and a rich spiritual world. Cattle are not merely livestock, but the cornerstone of their economy, social structure, and spiritual beliefs. They represent wealth, status, and a link to the divine, playing a central role in marriages, conflict resolution, and religious rituals. The Nuer's intricate kinship system, based on patrilineal descent and age-set affiliations, governs every aspect of their lives, from resource sharing to political alliances. Their spiritual beliefs, encompassing a supreme being, lesser spirits, and ancestral figures, are deeply intertwined with their environment and their cattle. The arrival of Christianity has added another layer to their spiritual tapestry, creating a fascinating blend of traditional practices and Christian doctrines. The Nuer have faced numerous challenges, including slave raids, colonial rule, and devastating civil wars. These conflicts have led to widespread displacement, loss of life, and the disruption of their traditional way of life. Yet, even in the diaspora, scattered across continents, the Nuer strive to preserve their cultural heritage, establishing community centers, teaching their language, and continuing their traditions. Their resilience is evident in their adaptability, their ability to maintain their core values while navigating a rapidly changing world. The institution of social men, where women can take on the social role of men under certain circumstances, highlights the fluidity of gender roles and the Nuer's pragmatic approach to social and economic challenges. These insights into the Nuer's cultural and social dynamics offer valuable lessons for understanding human adaptability, the complexities of cultural interaction, and the impact of conflict and displacement on traditional societies. They highlight the importance of cultural preservation, the role of kinship and community in fostering resilience, and the dynamic interplay between tradition and change. The Nuer's story also underscores the importance of understanding indigenous knowledge systems, particularly their deep understanding of their environment and their sustainable practices. Their traditional ecological knowledge, especially their relationship with birds, holds valuable lessons for contemporary conservation efforts. This exploration of the Nuer people is just a starting point. There is much more to learn about their rich history, their complex social structures, and their enduring spirit. Where do you see the future of the Nuer people? What aspects of their culture resonated most with you? Share your thoughts and questions in the comments below. Let's continue this conversation and learn from each other. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and suggest topics for future videos. The journey of discovery is never ending, and the pursuit of knowledge is a path worth traveling.